The Heavenly Demon. Can't Live a Normal Life. By Sanchin. Chapter 237. Way of the Predator. Part 1. Chris's actions were disrespectful. This was the land of the Empire. In a place and situation where no one should look down on the Valhalla Empire's emperor, Chris paid his respects to Roman first, and this made the atmosphere frozen cold. Even those who had been cheering for Chris's performance until a moment ago kept silent and looked at the emperor. At that moment, Roman raised his hand, and at the sight of his loyalty being accepted, Chris finally shifted his gaze to the emperor. He got on his knees, but he didn't offer his sword. It was a cheeky act. The faces of the high-ranking nobles, who sat near the table of the emperor, were red, but they couldn't say anything until the emperor did anything. Valhalla was the same as Kronos. In a nation where the emperor had absolute power, they couldn't recklessly raise their voices in front of the emperor. Your name was Chris? Finally, the emperor opened his mouth. If the emperor of Kronos was violent and had a cold atmosphere, the emperor of Valhalla spoke in a languid tone, not befitting the reputation of a warrior's country. His outside appearance was also ugly. His body seemed to be in bad condition, probably because he hadn't undergone any special physical training, and his sunken eyes seemed dark. Yes, it is Chris. Amazing. It isn't easy for a stranger from a foreign nation to win on the stage on the eve of the festival, but to actively decapitate the heads of the warriors and remain as the final winner. I also expected a boring match where we had to find something interesting to see, but thanks to you, I watched the stage with excitement. Thank you. To thank me for that. The emperor grinned and laughed. He displayed a strange feeling of madness. Even though he didn't show any special words or signs, the emperor had this air around him that could make people nervous. But you see. Just now, why did you bow to Roman Dmitri? Sigh. I don't mean to reprimand you. I have no intention of imposing the laws of the empire on people from other nations. It is just plain curiosity. In front of me, people who act like you are not so common. He was a bit frivolous. In an excited voice with no weight, Chris said. Because it is a stage for my lord. Just as the Valhalla warriors gave up their lives for the emperor, I also risked mine for my lord. There is no other reason. Who? The emperor made a sound of admiration. His eyes, which gazed at Chris, had changed. You are still at a young age, yet you possess outstanding skills and even blind loyalty towards your lord. Such an amazing talent. Valhalla is a nation that has treated talented people well since ancient times. People say that our nation doesn't welcome outsiders, but actually, it is only outsiders who have no skills. Valhalla can do anything to recruit talent like you. Money, if you want money. Honor if you want honor, and women if you want women. Valhalla is a paradise for those who have talent. His laughter turned deep. He was not asking Chris to take responsibility for his attitude, yet the conversation was moving in an odd direction. How about it? Swear allegiance to me right now, and I will give you a reward that will overwhelm anything that Dmitri had promised you. The words of the emperor had crossed the line. Groans and sighs could be heard from everywhere. In front of the whole nation, his statement about openly recruiting a person was worse than what Chris did by bowing to Roman. In his sudden and unexpected action, if Chris hadn't known what kind of person the emperor of Valhalla was, he would have been a bit flustered and shocked. The emperor of Valhalla. As the 14th son of the previous emperor, who gave birth to as many as 23 sons, he was a cruel figure who ascended to the position of the throne by taking the lives of even his youngest siblings in the battle for the throne. On a day covered in darkness, a bloody wind blew into the imperial family. As his sword was dripping with blood, the emperor of Valhalla killed all the bloodlines in his family. Hence, the people said that the only opponent of Valhalla now was Kronos. Despite knowing that fact, the reason they couldn't actively move was that the rumors about the mad nature of the Valhalla Emperor were well known. And it was worse when Kronos revealed their ambition to conquer the continent. They couldn't help but say that Valhalla was the lesser evil. Unlike Kronos, there were not that many cases where they invaded the borders of other nations, so many people who didn't know the situation in Valhalla fell into the illusion that it was just a nation of warriors and thought the Valhalla Empire was good. However, the reality was that it was evil and more extreme than expected. In a world where the weak get eaten and are dominated by the strong, the top position is occupied by an abnormal person. Chris, make your choice. Even so, people agreed that the Emperor of Valhalla's offer was attractive. His choice would mean a rise in his status. It was a fact that everyone acknowledged that the Emperor was a brutal person, but the reason he could stay in his current power was that he rewarded the people based on their abilities. It wasn't a lie to say that heaven was for those who had the ability. The reason why talents from the continent flowed into Valhalla through the ranking system was that the heaven-like daily life that was experienced by a few people in Valhalla was very nice. Between the conservatives and the liberals, the Emperor was in the middle. At times, both sides would agree, but what was certain was that both forces were composed of talented people suitable for the Empire. Their gazes were focused. Everyone was sure of Chris's answer. No matter what the true nature of Valhalla was, there was no reason for someone chosen by the Emperor to refuse him. The moment he accepted it, the heavens would open, and Valhalla would take the winner. However, Chris answered differently from their thoughts. I apologize, but I refuse. Why so? The present me, whom His Majesty values now, wouldn't have reached this state if it weren't for the teachings of my Lord. The value that the Empire desires belongs to my Lord and not me. I can only express my presence with the sword of Dimitri, so I cannot accept His Majesty's offer. Chris. He valued aspiration and the desire for strength. Whatever Valhalla offered, he didn't think it would make him stronger than when he was with Roman. Roman Dimitri was an existence that made his subordinates feel special. The benefits and treatment received by his subordinates under Dimitri made them have faith in Roman. Chris's answer was right. While politely refusing, the Valhalla Emperor turned to Roman Dimitri at the answer, which made him shine. It was interesting. Seeing Roman Dimitri look like he was expecting Chris's answer, the Emperor felt a strange sense of kinship. I cannot help it if you put it that way. The Eve stage ends with this. And to Chris, who is the winner, I will give him as much wealth that he cannot use up all his life. The Emperor cried out the reward for the winner. At his cry, which contained all emotions, the people of Valhalla shook off their tension and let out enthusiastic cheers. This nation. This was Valhalla. The eve of the festival was over. At the time when everyone went back to their respective rooms for tomorrow's festival. Slap. Discount Jonathan's head jerked back. Marquis Belfer coughed up his anger with a red face. This fucking bastard. You definitely made it clear that other than rankers, there is no doubt about Gonzalez's victory. Then what are these results? A stranger from another nation won the championship. And after boasting that you would deal with the subordinates of Roman in front of everyone, we now end up as idiots who spouted nonsense to the Emperor. I apologize. Quack. Slap. Shut up. And he was hit again. During the last meeting, the conversation proceeded in a more leveled manner than now, but the situation changed with their failure. The Emperor of Valhalla. He was a man who valued performance. And Marquis Belfer, who led this plan, knew he couldn't avoid taking responsibility for it. Look at how those conservative ones loved Chris the moment he won. If we repeat the same failure as today, His Majesty will side with the conservatives and not us. This is something I refuse to accept. Valhalla's future cannot be satisfied by repeating its barbaric history in the jungles. The current Valhalla was on the borderline. Was it moving to a new future? Or would they talk about tradition and stop where they are? Recently, the Marquis had been building a cooperative relationship with the Kronos Empire, but the Valhalla Emperor could change his mind at any time. And that was why he had to bring results now to prove his advice was right. If another defeat happened again, then the Emperor would rethink everything. Valhalla was unique in many ways. Even though the Emperor held absolute power, the specific future of the nation he thought about didn't exist. the violence continued. When the Marquis, who had been slapping him, was catching his breath, Viscount Jonathan corrected his form. As he was on his knees, he spoke in a desperate manner. "Marquis, please give me one more chance. I will set the stage for Roman to lose." It was his last chance. The moment he let go of this, he couldn't survive in Valhalla any longer. And Valhalla wasn't a place for those who were used to failure. "No, you don't have to do anything." His voice was cold. Marquis Belfer wiped the blood from his hand with a cloth and recalled the report he had received. "Barbassa has moved in earnest, so you'd better hope he succeeds. If even Barbassa fails, in order for you to take responsibility, I will guarantee that you will not survive." It was the day before the festival, and there was still a chance to turn the tables. Right after returning home, Roman Dmitri took a break. Knowing that he usually enjoyed tea, the servants served him something simple to eat and drink. But one of the servants serving the refreshments said, "Do not eat anything." At that moment, Roman looked at his servant. The servant said that when the other servants went to get other things, "Barbassa has made his move. I don't know what tricks he played, but from now on, you need to be careful of what you eat and drink. Keep that in mind." Barbassa's opponents were helplessly defeated by him, but the tricks he did were hidden. Do not shout out, saying he tried to assassinate you, either. Tomorrow is the festival day. Even if there is poison, Barbassa will try to turn you into a coward who is avoiding the fight in the end because of the fear that you would lose to him. He looked around and checked that the servants hadn't returned yet, and he added, "I am someone who admires Mr. Morales. We are the force of one, and I hope people like you will not be brought down by that coward and his tricks. We will not expect you to trust us. But if you are careful about everything in Valhalla, you can at least deal with Barbassa in a fair manner." It was an honest voice that had nothing to do with vendettas. Following the tradition of Valhalla, he heard what kind of person Roman Dmitri was from Sanchez. Regardless of nationality, he was someone worthy of respect. What would happen if a figure like Roman Dmitri collapsed due to his cowardly tricks? The fact that he, who was a member of Valhalla, had allowed it to happen couldn't be accepted. So as the people who shared the same values moved, they found out that Barbassa was making his move. His role was over. At least he had given Roman Dmitri the chance to have a fair fight. At the sight of the other servants entering the room, the servant changed his expression and tried to leave. At that moment, the servant's expression was stained with shock. Roman Dmitri. As if to show off to everyone, he was drinking the tea. Chapter 238. Way of the Predator. Part 2. The servant's expression cracked. His mouth twitched as if he wanted to say something, but the other servants were coming inside. During that time, Roman Dmitri savored the tea, and he also ate the snacks one by one and showed no signs of being alert. However, nothing drastic happened. Then the servants quickly cleaned up after he was done and went out. Roman Dmitri, who was drinking the remaining tea, opened the door as he felt a presence. "What is this? You know what is in it, and yet you drank it so carelessly." It was the servant who had just left. The man named Greg spoke with a look of strain and anger. It was a sudden warning, and there was a possibility that Roman didn't trust him. However, it was natural for a normal person to be wary of something when someone warned them, whether they trusted them or not. But Roman Dmitri drank the tea without hesitation. The servant risked everything by telling him the truth, but the empty teacup proved it all to be meaningless. Tuck. He placed the teacup down, and Roman Dmitri looked at Greg with a calm face. "I knew from the start that Barbassa mainly uses poison. And that poison doesn't work on me." "What is that supposed to mean?" The moment he drank the tea, the aura of poison spread through his body. It showed how strong the poison was, and it took over his body so silently that even an aura swordsman wouldn't notice the existence of the poison. The weapon that Barbassa used was definitely strong. If someone drank this poison, they wouldn't be able to undo its effects. This colorless poison was lethal. If the symptoms appeared belatedly, then his head would be cut off by Barbassa's sword. However, the opponent was Roman Dmitri. Due to the rapid development of his body, quite a bit of the poison became numb, and it wasn't strange to say that his body was in a state of being invulnerable to poisons. It was because the flames of the fire demon consumed the chi within his body, which Roman Dmitri considered a foreign object. No impurities were allowed, and thanks to that, the pure chi could be contained, and the poison was soon engulfed in flames. The heat spread inside his body, and as the heat flowed from his throat, it made Barbassa's plan useless. It was the truth that Greg didn't know about. His shocked face asked why he drank the tea despite knowing the truth, but Roman Dmitri didn't give him an answer. If you really want to help me, can the ingredients left in the teacup help prove that someone tried to poison me? It is possible, but the problem is time. Barbassa didn't use poison on the night of the eve for no reason. Those who are involved know that Barbassa uses poison, but there is no way to prove that he used it the day before. If you question him about the poison and give up the fight against him, he will use that to win over the public's opinion and drive the opponents into a corner. Refusing to fight in Valhalla is dishonorable for many reasons, and no one will listen to the evidence. However, to go on stage and prove the result will show that the sword of Barbassa isn't that strong. Barbassa was smart. The day before the fight, he cornered his opponent. Whether he drank the poison or not, it was an advantage for him. And if the opponent who was wary of poison stayed up all night without having anything, that was also something he wanted. He wanted to make the condition of his opponent worse. Barbassa was called the 12 Swords of the Continent and was able to overwhelm his opponents with that difference completely. It was an outcall. In a situation that would normally result in defeat, Roman Dmitri took a bold step and drank the poison. Then Roman Dmitri rose from his chair. Until the main stage ends tomorrow, prove that this teacup holds poison. If you get the results I want, I will get the results you want. He didn't care about his answer and stepped away. If he openly used poison, from now on, it was Roman's turn to use the facts and provoke the others. Among the servants who brought the refreshments, one of them bowed his head and spoke. Roman Dmitri drank the poison. He also ate the snacks, so he must have been poisoned. Is that so? The man's identity, it was the butler who oversaw the outside guests. Contrary to his straight-looking face, he had the most sinister smile as he stroked his gray beard. Foolish kid. To see him this careless before the fight. Dimitri's reputation ends with this mission. It was judged that the possibility of it ending up as a failure was high. Roman Dmitri was an unpredictable person, and he showed how resourceful he could be on the battlefield, so it wouldn't be easy to poison him. And his subordinate also won on the eve of the festival, right? But this was easier than they thought, and he was so careless. When the butler took the gold coin pouch and turned around, a familiar person burst into the kitchen where the butler was. Are you the butler handling this place? Yes, I. Swish. Crack. Quack. The face of the butler was smashed into the wall. Roman Dmitri looked at his face, which was dripping with blood, while still holding the opponent's hair in his hand. The servant here just fed me poison tea. If you are the one who governs this place and them, you will not be able to step away from taking responsibility. What poison did you give me? And did Barbassa order you? And no. What are you even talking about? I did nothing. The butler's face went pale. No, he didn't expect that the poison would be discovered this quickly. He had to get away now. If he emphasized that he was just a butler, then Roman would have to step back. No, you know something. If there were nothing, there would be no reason for the servants to receive gold coins from you. Chuck. His cheek was slapped. The butler, whose eyes were losing consciousness, stumbled as if he would fall, but the violent pair of hands didn't let go of his body. Even if the gold coins had no meaning, it wasn't unrelated to the fact that the servants and their actions were checked by the butler and that it was the butler who accepted the servants working in this place. There was no reason for him to be flustered. The rewards and obligations received as a person of responsibility weren't areas that could be excused by calling oneself innocent. If you are really innocent, then call someone who will take responsibility for this situation. That. His hesitating eyes, he was certain of the violence. That was the meaning of his momentary hesitation, but because he panicked, he realized he had made a mistake. From then on, he didn't add any more words. Slap. Again. Listening to the commotion, someone would have to move. As he waited for the tail to alleviate the situation, Roman Dmitri didn't mess around. Just as the opponent openly used poison, he brutally exposed the opponent's mistake by using violence. And it was as he had expected. In order to not let things get worse, in the end, the tail that was hiding had to show its face. Stop this now. What is happening here? It was Viscount Jonathan. His face, which had clear traces of abuse, looked flustered as he noticed the situation here. And at that moment, Roman smiled. If Viscount Jonathan was the tail, it meant that Marquis Belfer and Barbassa were behind this. Tack. He let go of him, and Roman wiped the blood off his hands, leaving the butler gasping for air. The servants here just poisoned me. And the butler gave a pouch of gold coins to praise the servant. Viscount Jonathan. What do you think about this? I am sure they were poisoning me on the orders of someone to disrupt the stage. That cannot be. Do not insult Valhalla. Viscount Jonathan shouted. At Roman Dmitri's words, his heart sank. Barbassa's poison, one couldn't find out about it in a normal manner. It was colorless and odorless, and it would slowly break away the mana in the body, so the effect shouldn't appear right away. Then how? How did this man find out? Contrary to his heart, which was pounding insanely, he looked confident. The Festival of Valhalla is a sacred stage. If that happens, we will actively step forward to find out the truth and punish the people involved severely. But Roman Dmitri. To say that the butler used poison is too broad a speculation. Before serving food to our guests, we use magic relics to detect poison. But why are you so sure that the tea was poisoned? He was driving the situation away to escape taking responsibility, and at the same time, he criticized the opponent. If there is no poison in the tea, will Roman Dmitri be able to take on the responsibility? It isn't a simple job. It is a disgrace to Valhalla, and it is a problem that we wouldn't ignore, even with guests. If you have doubts, leave the festival. I will directly report it to His Majesty and put another warrior on the stage on behalf of Roman Dmitri. It was the next best thing. If Roman avoided the fight, they would proceed with their first plan to call him a coward. The truth? It didn't matter. Valhalla managed all the people who would investigate and bring the evidence, so how on earth could they prove the existence of the poison? Roman Dmitri wouldn't be able to reveal the truth to the citizens of Valhalla. And the reason Barbassa had always been able to win was because of this. But Roman showed a different reaction than expected. The stage will proceed as scheduled. But I have no intention of letting this matter go. Viscount Jonathan. If I can prove the existence of the poison, you will have to take responsibility for what you just said to me. Through that, the problem of the poison was left open. At the sight of Roman Dmitri stepping back, Viscount Jonathan felt a strange, ominous emotion rise. The series of events was reported to Marquis Belfer and even Barbassa. Roman Dmitri found out about the poison. Will it be all right? It was a question from Marquis Belfer, and the light revealed Barbassa's face, which looked like a snake smiling. Marquis Belfer. Do you know why I prefer that specific poison? It is different from normal poison. At first, the people who are poisoned with it go insane, not knowing what is wrong with them, but the effect of the mana that scatters is like burning them in flames. Roman Dmitri is going through the same thing. I don't know how he figured out about the poison, but I am pretty sure that he is now convinced that he is not affected by it. It was an internal body poison, and it was a well-known poison in Murim. However, on the Salamander continent, it was Barbassa who created the new concept of internal body poison. Weak. Tack. He put a dagger on the table. Revealing a cool sight, he spoke. Even if he wasn't poisoned, what is there to worry about? Even if he defeated Morales, that doesn't mean that we are on an equal level. And I will prove that in front of the people, what the difference between the 12th and 6th place rankings in Valhalla means. It doesn't simply mean stepping 6 levels ahead. It means an overwhelming difference that one cannot dare to look at normally. So trust me. As I thought, you are so reliable. Marquis Belfer laughed. Barbassa was a faithful dog to them, so he was the perfect one to highlight the finale of this plan. It would be a lively time on the eve of the festival. And that was how the day ended. But on the next day, the festival that everyone was looking forward to had been heating up since the morning due to a rumor. Chapter 239. Way of the Predator. Part 3. The rumors began with the merchants of Marin. As if they had heard the information from somewhere, in a hushed voice, they spoke to people who had been shopping since the morning. You better not have high hopes for this festival. What are you talking about? Do you know how long I have been waiting for this day? The customer's eyes widened. It was about the showdown between Roman Dimitri and Barbassa. As Morales fell, people showed great interest, and people's anticipation for it was so great that they talked all night. If Barbassa won, it would mean protecting the honor of Valhalla, but if Roman Dimitri won, it would be an event that would remain in the history of the continent. Just 20 years old, Roman Dimitri would lead the future by rising to the ranks of the 12 swords of the continent at an age when others would consider one a genius, even if they only used a 3-star aura. It didn't matter if he was from a small nation. It was clear that their next move would definitely bring immense pressure on Roman Dimitri. But what was this merchant telling him about not expecting too much from the spar? I also heard this by chance through the servants of my business partners, but after the eve of the festival, there was this uproar where Roman Dimitri was staying, and I heard someone used poison. In the end, they couldn't find the person behind it, but Roman Dimitri said he would participate in the match despite being poisoned. So do not pay much attention to it. How can the poisoned Roman Dimitri defeat Barbassa when he isn't even in a normal state? Now his victory cannot be assured. Who is the bastard who dared to poison him? The customer was angry. To drop the honor of Valhalla like that. The festival was a sacred stage, and it was unacceptable to poison someone from another nation. Rumor spread. It was the truth at first, but when the day shone bright, a part of it was distorted. Roman Dimitri has been poisoned and is unable to fight normally. Still, in order to show the spirit of a warrior, he said he would step onto the stage even if it meant dying. This is an incident that Valhalla should be ashamed of. Serving guests poison isn't enough, but the way Barbassa is not saying anything is too much. Maybe it is like this. I don't know if Barbassa was scared after seeing Morales's fight and had tampered with something there. Everyone denies it, but Barbassa isn't a clean guy. The rumor spread. The words covered the city, and Roman Dimitri became a warrior who knew the honor of Valhalla. The prejudice had long disappeared. Roman Dimitri, who had already been recognized in the fight against Morales, showed a strong desire for the festival, so the people of Valhalla couldn't help but love him. The merchants who first spread rumors, the travelers on the street who talked about it, and even the people who nodded their heads, all of them belonged to the lower district sect. It was Roman Dimitri's intelligence organization. Just taking control of Dimitri wasn't enough. They had even penetrated the bottom of the empire. It was the perfect lower district sect. The actions in the past, the facts that supported the rumors, and some reasoning. People flocked to the site of the festival. If Roman Dimitri, who knew the honor of Valhalla, collapsed as helplessly as rumored, then they would not be able to forgive those who led the conspiracy. They were closed and simple, but they were people who knew romance. That was the root of Valhalla. The festival was just around the corner. In response to the rumors that spread around the world, Marquis Belfer's expression distorted. Someone intentionally spread the rumors. This is definitely the work of the conservatives. In his opinion, he couldn't believe this was Roman Dimitri's work. Since Valhalla was a land outside of Dimitri's influence, there were only conservatives who could interfere with his intentions. Besides, looking at the contents of the rumor, the part that praised Roman Dimitri and degraded Barbassa as if he were part of an evil group seemed to criticize the progressive faction to which Barbassa belonged. Furthermore, before the festival, the conservative nobles spoke to the emperor. "Your Majesty, the emperor. The public rumors are so vicious. Now that the people of Valhalla are questioning whether poison was used or not, the facts need to be confirmed, even if it means stopping the festival. Valhalla's festival is a sacred stage. We cannot allow dirty rumors to tarnish the stage." Right. It was the leader of the conservative faction, Count Gomez. At the words he uttered, the Valhalla emperor looked at Marquis Belfer with a languid expression. "Marquis Belfer, what do you think?" At that moment, there was this eerie feeling. The Valhalla emperor was a person who thought that entertainment was important, and he was someone who showed great expectations for what a stage would be. However, if it gets interrupted by dirty gossip, whatever the outcome, it would be difficult for those involved in this matter to keep their lives. The showdown between Barbassa and Roman Dimitri was an event that was controlled by the progressives. Not everyone was unaware of the plan related to Kronos, but that didn't mean everyone was responsible. Marquis Belfer said, "Rumors are just rumors. Your Majesty, the Emperor. The warrior representing Valhalla isn't Roman Dimitri but Barbassa. So watch him. In the first place, he will defeat Roman Dimitri with such overwhelming force that poison isn't even needed. If you say that, then I will expect it." The emperor took a step back. It wasn't that he didn't know about the poison's existence. He wanted to watch Roman Dimitri's match, and he didn't bother canceling the match even though he knew the truth. It was at that moment when thud. There was the sound of drums. It was a signal for the start of the festival. Thud, thud. At the majestic sound that spread, Marquis Belfer shifted his gaze to the stage and clenched his fist tightly. "Barbassa, the only way to bury the truth is to defeat Roman Dimitri. Prove it in front of the people of Valhalla." How Barbassa's existence was recognized as a member of the 12 Swords of the continent. They believed that he would win. Just in time, the warriors of the festival appeared on the stage. Barbassa and Roman Dimitri faced each other. Then Barbassa looked at Roman Dimitri and smiled. "I am worried about whether your body is all right. The poison you had taken will take some time to take effect. He was going to die soon." Knowing that the crowd couldn't hear them, he openly mocked the opponent in a voice only Roman Dimitri could hear. Using poison was a cowardly act, but Barbassa felt no shame. He was different from the normal warriors of Valhalla. The people of Valhalla believed that there was something for warriors in the afterlife, but Barbassa wanted to enjoy everything in this life. Indeed, his method was correct. While Morales, who cried for honor, died in vain, didn't he survive until the end, representing Valhalla? It was a world where the winner took all. In the midst of the new and changing flow, Barbassa was the most realistically developed being. But Roman Dimitri's reaction was calm. Even though it was clear that there must have been an adverse reaction from the poison, he looked at Barbassa and said something strange. "When I first learned about this world, I had been curious about the existence of the 12 Swords of the continent and the people who were recognized as the best. How strong they are, and how long it will take for me in this life to defeat them. A lot has happened in the meantime. And I judged that the time had come, so I accepted Valhalla's invitation." It wasn't a conversation. It was a unilateral notice. Roman Dimitri drew his sword, looking at his opponent. "I will tell you in advance. The effect of the poison you are expecting will not appear. This position. It was a place for verification." Just as he wanted to prove to everyone that Roman Dimitri was an existence that shouldn't be ignored just because he was from a small nation, he hoped to gain confidence. Barbassa would serve as a great example before he dealt with formidable enemies in the future. If he struggled against this man even a little, winning the war with the Empire would be impossible. Kronos and Valhalla. The world, which was like the Great Sea, was equipped with national power that could not be reached just with the power of a single individual. Dealing with them alone would be overwhelming. That was why, in the future war, Dmitri couldn't back down a single step against the huge fort called the Empires. Barbassa's expression hardened. He knew the opponent's force felt unusual. Roman Dmitri said, "From now on, I will do my best. If you block all 9 of my attacks, at that point, I will admit that the walls of Valhalla are high." It was then, as soon as he ended his words. Flutter. Roman Dmitri rushed at Barbassa. Weak. He was fast. Roman Dmitri instantly closed the distance from his opponent and swung his sword with a swirling aura. Heavenly Demon Sword Technique. First part. Kwang. Grrng. An intense clash happened. Barbassa took the attack as if it were nothing, and then, on the contrary, he exploded his aura and attacked Roman Dmitri's gap. His series of movements were natural and swift. Even though he went through dirty tricks to win, Barbassa proved that he wasn't powerful in name alone. First form of the Heavenly Demon Sword Technique. Kwang. The Heavenly Demon Sword Technique was formless. Roman Dmitri suppressed the attack of the opponent with force, and Barbassa's expression became a little flustered. It was unexpected. The opponent didn't back down an inch, as if he were going to lead the attack. Actually, he was even acting like he would take the lead. Barbassa's pride was hurt. The Valhalla festival was obviously the way he accepted challengers, but Roman Dmitri's attitude looked arrogant. Flash. The wind was pushed out. Making Roman Dmitri evade the attack, Barbassa's unique snake-like sword movement went for the opponent's neck. But... swish. Roman Dmitri didn't back down. He avoided Barbassa's attack just by moving only his upper body, and Barbassa followed Roman's movement until the end, with his sword constantly changing directions. His sword technique looked so tenacious. The moment he felt like it was blocked, an attack would come from his blind spot and slash his body, which represented the current sword technique that Barbassa used. Third form of the first part of the Heavenly Demon Sword Technique. Kwang. Grrng. Barbassa bounced back. As he was caught in the aftermath of the aura, he failed to do what he intended. This fucking bastard. It was a different situation than he had intended, and Barbassa straightened his stance. In this fight, being equal to his opponent was shameful. Foolish crowds could be fooled, but figures like Marquis Belfer knew that they used poison. What would they think when they saw the situation here? The fact that he couldn't overwhelm the opponent even though poison was used, his value would go down. This was unacceptable. Barbassa raised his mana. From now on, he intended to push the opponent. Kwang. Grrng. Aura swayed. This time, he rushed in first, blocking Roman Dmitri's space, and then he stamped the opponent at the front. At that moment. First form of the Heavenly Demon Sword Technique. Second form of the Quack-Quack-Wang. Roman made successive attacks, and the smile on Barbassa began to crack. He was pushed back. Even though he obviously raised his aura to a higher level, the clash with Roman Dmitri gave him an unbearable shock. The opponent was just in his mid-20s, and it was only a natural result for him to win this battle. Besides the attack he just made, it wouldn't have been easy to push back Morales, who was doing his best, yet there was no change in Roman Dmitri's expression as he was fighting against him. It was from then on that an ominous feeling rose. Unlike usual, the poison didn't work, and Roman Dmitri's form was pushing him. In a situation where the possibility of his defeat was rising, Barbassa exploded his power. Grrg. Die. The world flashed at his power, and even the people who were there couldn't see it. He was displaying his 6-star aura to its limit, so normal people couldn't even look at it, and it was different from usual because he had lost his calmness. He wanted to gnaw at the opponent's physical ability with his unique snake-like attack, so he should have an advantage. However, it didn't matter much. This time, he was convinced that Roman Dmitri couldn't block this next attack. Third form of the heavenly demon sword technique. Kwang. Kwak wak wang. The world turned upside down. The ground collapsed, and the situation in front couldn't be confirmed. Then a cloud of dust rose. When the series of events had calmed down a little, the sight in front was confirmed by the people, and Barbassa was coughing up blood. Cough. His face was painted in shock. It made no sense. It was a 6-star aura. To think he was defeated in the fight between strength, and the opponent just attacked 6 times. Roman Dmitri had clearly warned him that he would attack 9 times, and there were 3 more left. Staggering back, he wanted to deny this reality. But as he looked ahead through the cloud of dust, he saw Roman charging at him. First form of the second half of the heavenly demon sword. The absolute in Murim and the technique called the heavenly stage. When the first blow to enter the realm of the heavenly stage was used, Barbassa countered it by raising his aura to the limit, even if it meant burning his life. This had gone beyond the realm of common sense, and his only hope was to block the 9th attack, but as soon as he encountered the aura, he was dumbfounded. Annihilation. Barbassa's presence faded. The parts of his body that were in contact with the aura burned up in flames, and he couldn't take his eyes off Roman Dmitri, denying it until the moment he faded. If only he had known that Roman Dmitri was such an existence, he would have never pushed for the confrontation. PSSSHH. Dust scattered. That was all. The result was obvious, yet in this situation where the winner had been decided, none of the spectators were cheering. No, they couldn't do it. Chapter 240. Way of the Predator. Part 4. The spectators who were watching the stage felt like their thoughts were shutting down. Who was Barbassa? Even though dishonorable rumors circulated that he used poison, it was still an undeniable truth that he rose to the position of the 12 swords of the continent with his skills. Barbassa's skills were real. Even though Morales constantly criticized him, the reason he didn't recklessly apply for a challenge was due to the difference in their skills. However, how could one explain the sight in front of him? People looked at the stage dazed, despite the sight in front of him. Am I seeing things? One person said that, but that was what everyone thought. Even before the fight, people expressed their anger at the rumors regarding Roman Dmitri. Roman Dmitri was supposed to be at a disadvantage. Even though he showed overwhelming strength in the fight against Morales, most people were convinced that Barbassa was better. It was a situation where the outcome felt so obvious. People flocked to the site and gritted their teeth, saying that they wouldn't stand still if the situation were odd. His victory was unexpected. His opponent was Barbassa. Roman Dmitri would have been recognized even if he had overcome the worst condition of poison in his body. So they couldn't believe it even more. Roman Dmitri won. Constantly going against opponents with overpowering strength, Barbassa never had an advantage against Roman Dmitri. When they exchanged clashes for the first time, people admired how skilled Barbassa was. Despite Roman's quick attacks, Barbassa's fast response was expected. But the second attack, and the third. And when the fourth attack came, the crowd was shocked as Barbassa's face changed. It made no sense. Barbassa was a 12 swords of the continent, yet he couldn't do anything. Looking at the final attack, they couldn't accept it, even though they saw the result with their own eyes. And that wasn't all. Even the result felt disastrous. The fact that they hadn't yet confirmed the power of Roman Dmitri was what felt heavy to the people. The fight between Barbassa and Roman Dmitri. The winner is Roman Dmitri. On the stage, the referee announced the result in a trembling voice. Their denial had to end because they all had to accept this reality. Seeing Roman Dmitri standing alone on the stage, the audience screamed simultaneously as if they were going to die. Wah! Roman Dmitri won. This is the birth of a new 12 swords of the continent. Cheers continued to spread like wildfire. But still, the people couldn't accept the reality. However, the fact that Roman Dmitri, who showed the pride of a warrior in a confrontation with Morales, defeated Barbassa, was a truth that could be confirmed with their eyes. It was a pleasure. The fact that he, who knew the honor of Valhalla, didn't get defeated. The fact that even after taking poison, he was able to overturn this situation with his skills. The people screamed. Even though he wasn't from Valhalla, Roman Dmitri truly deserved the applause he was getting. At that moment, one person walked up to the stage, where everyone was going insane. It was a man with a slightly nervous expression. It was Greg, who had received a mission from Roman Dmitri. One day ago, Greg didn't completely understand what Roman Dmitri's plans were. He knew what his intention was, but he wanted to somehow stop Roman Dmitri from carrying out his foolish plan. Even if I analyze the poison, if you lose the fight with Barbassa, it will all be meaningless. Does Roman Dmitri really believe he can defeat Barbassa? I do acknowledge his skills after the fight with Morales, but you will not be allowed to prove whether or not a poison was used. It was hopeless. The death of Morales. After confirming the events of the day, Greg tried to save Roman Dmitri. This plan was dangerous. If Barbassa found out that there was a group that was interfering with their plans, he would surely go after Greg and slaughter him. It was a dangerous task to take on. While he was analyzing the ingredients of the poison, he wanted to withdraw, but he didn't want to betray Roman Dmitri. Valhalla was his country, and he was acting weak. The forces that currently lead Valhalla no longer risk their lives for the sake of the nation, so Greg risked his life. He put his life on the line, and he saw the results before his eyes. Seeing him destroy Barbassa, Greg was now convinced. Even though it was about exposing the true face of this man, he appeared in front of the people to provide evidence about the poison. I risked my life for you. So please reveal the ugly truth to the people. So that the people of Valhalla know a bit of shame and humility. Roman Dmitri. How much you had to overcome. You did well. He accepted the evidence, and all the people's eyes focused. In a situation where everyone wanted to ask why Greg was there, Roman Dmitri spoke while looking at the emperor. Last night, someone poisoned my tea. What I am holding in my hand right now is proof of the tea being poisoned, and you can confirm it. Actually, the whole issue of poison and who used it doesn't matter to me. But I am disappointed in the attitude Valhalla showed towards this incident. Tuck. He threw out the evidence. It fell to the floor, revealing a black shade, which meant Roman Dmitri was right. When I noticed the existence of poison and wanted to confirm it, Viscount Jonathan asked me if I was willing to be held accountable for my comments that insulted Valhalla. Isn't this a funny situation now? I am a normal stranger and a foreigner in this nation. In a situation where the servants at the house said that the poison came from the tea, I felt disappointed at the attitude of Valhalla, who was passing the blame instead of finding the truth. I will not make any assumptions at all. Normally, I would have knocked down the people who dared to poison my tea, but Viscount Jonathan's response in denying the truth that was in front of him showed that the pride of Valhalla fell to the ground. And so I accepted the challenge. I didn't want to do what the group who poisoned me intended to do. The poison had no effect on him. However, he didn't reveal that. The people of Valhalla liked to think that he won with a handicap. The emotions of the spectators were boiling now. As they listened to Roman Dmitri, their faces were red from the mistakes they had made. This was shameful for them. To invite a stranger from another nation and use poison to manipulate the fight in a place known as the Nation of Warriors. They couldn't even look at Roman Dmitri's face now. I want to ask His Majesty. I heard that Valhalla is the land of warriors. But contrary to that, does the image of prosecuting and blaming me for trying to confirm the truth fit the values of this place? If I had been defeated here today, the truth would have never made its way out, and Roman Dmitri would have disappeared into history as a mediocre existence. Your Majesty. I want an answer about this matter. On the stage, he looked at the emperor. And in response to Roman Dmitri's words, the Emperor of Valhalla showed an uncomfortable expression. The Emperor of Valhalla said, "The empire has become ridiculous. That too. The truth didn't matter. Barbassa used poison? He knew about it. The problem was that after using poison, the guy was defeated, and then the ugly truth was revealed in front of the people. This spoiled everything. Roman Dimitri's power was shocking, but the fact that he exposed his fangs here offended the emperor even more. Viscount Jonathan. Are the words of Roman Dimitri true? From his seat among the nobles who were lined up in a row, Viscount Jonathan got up. I apologize. Right, that means it is true. At that moment, Marquis Belfer didn't say anything. The Emperor of Valhalla was a man who should be punished since he was also responsible. In the current situation, if he made a remark as if he were his good partner, then the torture they would be put through wouldn't be easy to imagine. He got up. The Emperor of Valhalla drew the sword from the knight who was next to him. Sinners, come before me. Viscount Jonathan trembled as the sword shone in the sun, and his heart sank. In response to his body going cold, Viscount Jonathan ran to the ground and fell down, pleading in an earnest voice. I am really sorry. Just a day before the festival, it seemed that my impatience and anxiety began to flare up at the thought of something unexpected happening. I will be careful never to do that again. Please, just let me live. I will devote my entire life to Valhalla. Do not drag this on any longer. Tuck. He pushed the sword at Viscount Jonathan, and the guy just gritted his teeth as the sword began to dig into his skin. And the emperor said, Viscount Jonathan, you have tarnished the honor of Valhalla. The festival honoring the souls of warriors is ruined because of your imperfections. And I have no intention of giving a chance to trash like you. Please. Ack. Whack. He swung the sword. The weak arms of the emperor cut down his head without any hesitation, and blood splattered. Viscount Jonathan trembled and tried to hold on to the leg of the emperor. However, the emperor continued to swing the sword. His body, which wasn't trained to hold the sword, couldn't even cut the man's neck at once and even made the surroundings get stained in blood. Yet Viscount Jonathan's breath didn't stop. Meanwhile, the people of Valhalla were watching all of this, and the sound of flesh being cut lingered in their ears. Finally, thud. Viscount Jonathan's body fell, and the emperor threw his bloodied hair to the back. Hook, hook. This much is nice, hook. Wouldn't that be enough to take responsibility for this incident? He gasped for air and turned to Roman Dimitri. He had the appearance of a madman. Even so, Roman Dimitri looked at the emperor. It is not enough. Murder isn't the way to solve a problem. Punishing Jonathan Viscount is a personal achievement. We ask for an institutional measure to prevent something like this from happening again. He had the attitude of not backing down. The Valhalla emperor smiled. He was sure of it. Roman Dimitri wasn't even the least bit fearful of the emperor. The situation ended, and the two pillars of Valhalla, Count Gomez and Marquis Belfer, followed the emperor. Blood was dripping on the ground as they walked ahead. Count Gomez. What do you think of Roman Dimitri? He is a dangerous person. Barbossa is a 12 swords of the continent. If he can be overwhelmed, then Roman Dimitri might be the best person on the continent. But, of course, I do not think he is the strongest. In the ranks within the 12 swords of the continent, Barbossa isn't the top performer. However, it cannot be overlooked that Roman Dimitri isn't even 30 yet. Marquis Belfer, what do you think? Marquis Belfer didn't look good. Viscount Jonathan's death still lingered in his mind, and now wasn't the time to disobey the Emperor of Valhalla. The same as Count Gomez. But what I consider the most dangerous isn't Roman Dimitri's strength. There is a limit to what an individual can handle when there is a war between nations. But Roman Dimitri, even when he stepped into the imperial palace's lands, he showed no signs of backing down. He is someone who has the nature of a predator since birth. He accepted the fight against Barbossa despite knowing that poison was used on him, and after defeating him, he revealed the truth to the people. He knew when to do it. I would have shut off Roman Dimitri's mouth if he said that off the stage. He didn't like Roman Dimitri's actions. Their perfect plan to avenge Count Denver was thrown apart. The emperor laughed. He seemed excited. In his boring life, a really interesting existence appeared. Roman Dmitri dared to speak against my punishment. He is a warrior worthy of Valhalla, but he cannot be left alive for the future of Valhalla. Fully support the plan of Kronos. We must not let him leave alive. Roman Dmitri shouldn't reach Dmitri safely. People like him raised his need to kill. The Emperor of Valhalla wished for Roman Dmitri's death. The conservatives opposed the collusion with Kronos. However, Count Gomez didn't refute it since Roman Dmitri was dangerous to all of them. Even if it was different from the will on their side, they compromised for the benefit of the nation. I will follow your orders. Roman Dmitri will be punished for what he did. They were sure of it. Roman Dmitri couldn't return home alive.